Oboro, guys, this mysterious ninja can strike from the shadows, but she can hit like a truck. I was really impressed at her damage output, and today we're going to take her for a spin in full damage gear, so let's jump right in. So let's start with the skills here real quick. We have a single target A1 with 50% chance of placing decreased defense. However, this will become an AoE instead if you hit a target that has 4 or more debuffs. It's hard to set up, but when you do it properly, this hits really hard, and I'll show you guys the multipliers in a second. The A2 is going to be 2 hits, 100% chance of stealing all buffs from the target if you're attacking while under Veil or Perfect Veil. Then the second hit, 75% chance or 100% of transferring all debuffs from this champion to the target. And then for the A3, we have increased crit rate, increased crit damage, and you go into Perfect Veil before after attacking the enemy. So you buff up, you attack the enemy. If it's critical, then you go into Perfect Veil. And the passive works with this. You get Revive on Death anytime you receive a Veil or Perfect Veil buff. So in today's testing, I only used her as herself with the Veil buff. I didn't exactly have other champions to do that. Perhaps there would be a way to get a better combo that way, but this is what I decided to do. But first, before we get to the gear, check out these multipliers. If I understand correctly from what I see here, the A1, the single target, is 2.6 times the attack. If, however, it becomes an AoE, is it 4.2 times the multiplier of the attack? If so, this is on par with like AoE nukers in terms of multipliers. Then we have for the Mystic Smoke here, each attack deals 3.15 times the attack. This is pretty good. And look at the A3, 5.6 times the attack. So certainly is quite the nuker. All right, so let's go over the gear. Obviously, I'm not, I don't have a ton of gear for you guys to work with. I only have one set. It's Cruel, so it's the same gear we had on Ginjin yesterday, so we can quickly go over the pieces yet again. Speed, crit rate, crit damage. We're really not reinventing anything here. Attack percent chest, only 5 stars sadly, but we do have 6-star crit damage gloves, and then the same ring from Genjin, and on also the same amulet, and still just an attack banner. The game refuses to give me an accuracy banner on the test server, so for now this is the only test I'll be able to run today. She does have the debuffs, the ability to steal stuff, so like obviously you would want some accuracy on this champion. So we have 4.6k attack, 187 speed, 100% crit rate, 262% crit damage. I'll also quickly talk about other potential sets you could put on this champion. I think Swift Parry could be pretty interesting. Also Relentless perhaps could be really interesting. As for the Masteries, we went into a typical nuking build with Helm Smasher for the tier 6, but I did go for the Opportunist Mastery in this case, and Retribution and Deterrence I think is fantastic on her, because if you get to counterattack on that A1 and there's 4 or more debuffs, you actually get a pretty strong hitting AoE, and I think that's really good. So now let's go take her for a spin in a couple different places, and we're going to start with the usual: increase attack, AoE, decrease defense, and weaken. We have a Harvest Jack in here now to get more debuffs, so we want to reach those 4 debuffs on the enemy team. Also, we have True Fear, which is going to work with her Opportunist Mastery, so right there we're going to get an A3. Boom, 195k. That's very reasonable, basically a one-shot kill, I would assume, for most champions. Then we're going to cycle back around into our A2. Now we have the increased crit damage buff though, so it means we're going to be hitting a little bit harder. Yes, I do have a Martyr in here. I thought maybe I could set up some counterattacks to see that A1 proc, but we're not really going to see that come into play. There's the A2, 111k, very reasonable there as well. And then we're going to cycle around one more time to see her A1 in action. Remember, if there are 4 or more debuffs, we're going to have an AoE out of this skill instead. And pay attention to the damage, or actually we'll quickly compare to Genjin from yesterday. We get 86k, about 104k. Very reasonable. Genjin with his AoE nuke, like the A3 or A2, I forget, was basically in the range of 120,000 to 150,000, depending if we had Gurp Duck or not, with roughly the same gear. So I think that is pretty good. Next wave, kind of the same thing here. We are going to cycle back around on our skills, but we're going to hit with an A3 without AoE, decrease defense, and weaken. So obviously it doesn't hit as hard. But if you want to manual, let's say this, right away you could go into an AoE A1, right? So perhaps you would want to try and do that instead. Maybe it's going to be good for the new upcoming dungeons, the higher difficulties. But overall, I'm going to say that, like, she hits hard. She hits really, really hard. Of course, though, trying to set this up in the arena is a little bit more complicated, so let's go check that out. For the first test, I wanted to see if I can get her to do her AoE A1 first. So to do that, I brought in Lydia for decreased defense and weaken. Then we have Harvest Jack for AoE True Fear and decreased speed. Then we manual with the Krila to get the allies join attack, hoping that the selected target has 4 or more debuffs. It does end up happening. I believe the Alton is selected as the target. Therefore, we get that AoE A1. Very reasonable numbers. It's not perfect. We don't even have increased attack. This is sort of going out of your way to set this up, so I wouldn't exactly count on this for the arena. Right there we saw her A3, 66,000. Very reasonable again in terms of numbers. On this next fight, kind of the same thing here. I try to set it up yet again. I wanted to see against other types of champions what kind of damage we could deal, and we have to get lucky again with our proc of the allies join attack. It has to hit the right champion, so again, very hard to set up. So right now they're going for Apothecary. It doesn't happen, so you get a single hit A1, still hit pretty darn hard. So now we're going to see the A3 and we're going to cycle around to the A2. 112k against that Tyrell, again without increased attack, so very impressive. For the A2, I believe we're going to still take down this Mountain King here. So we're going to go into the Mystic Smoke skill. It doesn't have any buffs that we can steal, unfortunately, but still 122,000 damage is pretty reasonable. For the last part of the showcase, I wanted to test her in the hard Doom Tower as my only damage dealer. We got to bring in a lot of debuffs. This is important. I was trying to test something here that with the Mastery, when we get attacked like this and we lose 25% of our health, again, right there, we counterattack with an AoE A1. If, let's say, use the Life Drinker Mastery or maybe a Lifesteal set, she could heal herself fully back up, right? And as you keep cycling through this like that, again, unfortunately, Dark Lane only had 3 debuffs on that example. She would keep counterattacking with that A1 without even needing a counterattack champion on your team. So if you want a hard carry in terms of damage dealers for the Doom Tower, I think this is a great way to use her. So of course we could try and deal more damage by bringing Gurptuk or something of the sort, but overall I think it's unrealistic. This is a relatively balanced team and I can let it run on auto, and she should be able to take down all these champions one by one, whether with the A1, A3. So right there we're going to get an A1 again. We should have an AoE. We do. We don't one-shot these champions at this difficulty on the hard Doom Tower, but we're certainly dealing quite a lot of damage, right? So as long as you have enough debuffs right there, counterattack again, I think you're going to be good with this champion, right? So there you have it, guys. That's my quick showcase of Oboro. Let me quickly show you the gear yet again in case you guys want to compare stats. And of course, having accuracy on this champion might be a little bit better. But here's what I have. 4.6k attack, 190 speed, roughly 100% crit rate, 262% crit damage. All the skills are done on this champ for the showcase. Masteries, we have Helm Smasher, as I showed before, but also Retribution and Deterrence, which I think are pretty good. And finally, a quick snapshot of the Great Hall for you guys. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys later.